Driving home one afternoon from a dentist appointment when I decided to take a long way home to head through a backcountry area that's primarily all old native territory. There wasn't much back here, truth to be told, but the scenery was beautiful. That's when I had the sighting of my life happen to me. I almost hit a big black dog. I saw this figure run in front of my car. It was running upright, just like a person, and looked just like a werewolf. I stopped the car and just sat there gaping at it as it ran across the road quickly. I never did see something like that before in my life. I slowly started to move again after it crossed. When I got about 300 yards away from where it crossed, I could see in my rearview mirror that it was looking back and peering its head back out at my vehicle. That dog was huge. It was nearly 8 feet tall, had pointed ears, a long snout, and a huge chest. When it crossed and jumped down the embankment on the road, it let out a growl unlike any I've ever heard. I could feel the vibrations in my body. It was so intimidating. I couldn't stop thinking about this sighting until I reached my house. I told my husband about what had happened, and he told me to never go through that area again, that it was supposed to be a cursed place of dark magic, and that people have gone missing after going to that area. Lots of strange things have gone on in that area, besides just missing persons. Weird loud metallic banging sounds, bright lights at night, figures moving in the sky in the woods. I guess that entire area is a hotbed for UFO sightings and encounters, among even Bigfoot sightings, I guess. My husband, who has grown up here in the area, where I haven't been growing up here, him and his friends avoided that area like the plague because people he knew went through there and turned out missing. Even many of the natives that live around here don't venture through that area much. Just kind of makes you wonder. I probably should have never driven through there, but oh well. I'm kind of glad I did, because had I not, I would have not seen such a marvel of an animal, if you could even call it that. Personally, I don't believe in werewolves or creatures like Bigfoot, but I do believe that there are monsters out there. In fact, I have a story that I could share with you, in which I have an experience with a monster all of my own. It was one night when I was left home by myself playing video games while my parents were out, and a monster, what I would believe to be a monster, tried to break into my house. I use the term monster because that's the only way I know how to accurately describe the way it looked and its behavior. In reality, it closely resembled that of a werewolf, but I try to be logical about it, and I realize that werewolves aren't necessarily real. I personally don't believe that there are people turning into these things under a full moon, but I cannot deny that the thing that I saw that night, that thing, a monster, was most certainly real, and had it gotten into my house like it wanted to, there is no telling if I would still be here today to tell you my story. All around our house we had a yard, and then beyond that, on both sides and the back, was probably about 3 acres of small woods, which then led directly to a neighbor's house. Directly in front of the house was the driveway that led to the road, and on the other side of the road were tall hedges. Had we not had as much privacy, and maybe were closer to the neighbors, just maybe this wouldn't have happened. Anyway, this happened to me when I was 15 and still in high school. I was a freshman, so I believe I was either 14 or 15 actually. My parents went out for a date night, and when they did, they usually did not get back until super late, like after midnight. So I was left at home to play video games and watch TV. You know, stuff that typical teenagers do. Since my parents have a large screen TV in the living room, I think I hooked up my PS3 and was playing games through that. I'll give you a quick layout of our house. As soon as you walk in the front door, the TV is directly to your right, facing your left. To your left is the couch, which faces the TV, and there's a large window perpendicular to the front door. From the outside, if you were to look in this front window, you have full view of the living room, as well as the dining area, which sits back behind the living room. If you're in the living room and you walk past the TV, you can go right down the small hallway, which leads to my parents' room and a small bathroom, and my father's office. If you turn left and go down that way, you go down another small hallway, which leads to my bedroom and a small bathroom. The bedroom is on the other side of the living room. So if I'm in my bedroom and I was facing where the TV is in the living room, there's a wall there. Going back to the living room, as soon as you walk in the front door, directly in front of you is the dining room, and in the kitchen curves inward, blocked by a wall. Now that you kind of know what the house is like, this is what happened. I stopped playing games and I quickly got up to go get a drink of water, and as I'm walking back from the kitchen, I noticed something I didn't before. I see big red eyes peering at me through the window at night. When I saw those eyes, I just lost it. I turned around and I ran, and I locked myself in my bedroom. I was freaking out. I felt like a little kid who had just seen a monster outside. When I went inside though, I started looking through the blinds just a little bit. I didn't want to move the blinds that much because I knew that it knew where I was, so I didn't want to move the window blinds. Then I saw it again. This time, it followed the movement. It followed me to where my bedroom was, and it noticed that I had gone into the next bedroom over and moved over in the front of my window. Because of its big silhouette, this thing must have been around 7 to 8 feet tall. It had a long tail which curled up behind it. I really couldn't believe what I was looking at. I thought to myself it was a werewolf even before I saw it in full. The shape gave it away. Crappy for me, but I had broken my window blinds months ago by wrestling too much with my friends, and I hit it, and my parents never bothered to replace it because they were mad, so they didn't close quite all the way, which meant that this thing had free rein to fully look into my windows right at me, and there was virtually nothing I can do but try and hide out of the way in the corner. I had my light off, and I was hiding in the corner while this thing scanned my room, looking for me. I really couldn't believe what I was looking at. I thought it was a werewolf, even before I saw it in full, just by its silhouette alone. The head and its mane looked just like a werewolf you would see. It looked to be huge, and it stood upright on 2 legs. It was covered in long dark fur, almost like a matted fur, and it had pointed ears just like a dog does. The eyes glowed red, like a deep dull red, and even had a hint of yellow. Its face was what really confused me, because the way it looked totally defied understanding. It leaned in so close to the glass that you could see its breath on the window and the condensation building up. I don't think it could see me, because I turned my light off, but after a few moments, it pulled its head back and walked around to the other side of my house. This thing was heavy, and you could tell that it weighed a lot, because every time it took a step, you could just hear this dull thud on the ground. I jumped up quickly, locked my door, and ran back and sat in the corner, listening intently for whatever this thing was going to do next. I could faintly hear my game, which was paused, and then it was silent for a moment. I kept listening, and then that's when I heard the back sliding glass door rattling. To my horror, this thing was trying to open the sliding glass door to get in the house. It was shaking it harder and harder, more and more violent each time. I began to cry. I was so scared. I left my phone out in the living room, so I had nothing I could do, nobody I could reach out to or call. I didn't know what to do. At the time, it was maybe 9:45 p.m., and my parents wouldn't be home for a few more hours. I had no way to contact anybody, nothing I could do. If this thing broke into the house, I was a goner. It tried and tried at the door for a while, before just stopping entirely. I didn't hear anything anymore after that. I didn't even hear it walk away like I could hear it walk all the way around the house. I still heard my game, which was just a fainted noise, but it was still sitting there paused, just like I had left it. I decided I was just going to sit there and wait until my parents got back. I didn't know how long it was, but eventually, my mother and father came home. It was only around 11 p.m., but felt like I had been sitting there waiting for hours. They got back because my mother has this habit of coming down with terrible migraines, and she wanted to cut their date shorter. When my mother and father came home, my mother got some aspirin, and they were both wondering why I had locked myself in my bedroom with the lights off, when I told them that I thought I heard an intruder trying to break into the house. My father looked at me very strangely and investigated the back door, where I told him that I had heard somebody trying to break in, but there was no signs, no footprints or smudges on the glass. It's like I just hallucinated the whole thing. I know what I saw, and I know what I experienced. I am no fool, and I wouldn't dare tell my parents this because they would never believe me. Now, fast forward in time, I'm in my 20s and currently enrolled in college, and that is still one of the most horrific things. I didn't believe in monsters before that, but I do now, and I know for fact they are real.